Hi everyone, we still have a few people joining, so I'll just give it another minute and then we'll make a start. Okay, we'll make a start. If anyone has any issues with hearing me, just let me know. Firstly, I hope that you're all staying safe and well. I really appreciate you taking the time to attend today, as I understand that the pressure that there is on businesses at the moment around HR and payroll processes is extremely high, as we all have a lot of things that we need to do to make sure that we keep our employees paid. My name's Nicola and I work at PayFit as a product advisor, and I'm hosting the webinar today. The focus of the session is going to be around furlough and the job retention scheme, as we're expecting the online service to be ready for Monday the 20th of April. And there has also been some changes to the guidance over the last couple of days. So firstly, we're going to answer some of the questions that you've already sent to us. Then we'll take a look at the questions that you've asked us throughout the webinar. Now, depending on the layout of your screen, there will be an option to submit questions either on the right-hand side or the bottom of the screen. And when I finished answering the pre-sent questions, we'll take a look at those. Now, if you've attended our first Q&A session a couple of weeks ago, some of the questions that I'm answering may seem a little bit familiar, and that's because there have been some changes to the guidance since we last held the session, and I feel that it's quite important to just cover what some of those changes are. Okay, so let's make a start. The first question is, how do I furlough an employee? So furloughing employees, firstly, you need to choose the employees that you're going to be furloughing. Now, these should only be employees whose alternative, because there is not currently work available for them, would be either being laid off or made redundant. Now, one change that has happened over the last few days is that this now extends to somebody who is also on sick leave. So if you have an employee who is on sick, but they do not have a role that they could come back to if their sickness ended, you can end their sickness to furlough them. In addition to this, if you have any employees who are unfortunately unable to work because they have caring responsibilities, for example, they have children at home they need to look after, you can also now voluntarily furlough those employees. Now, once you've chosen the employees that you want to furlough, you will need to notify them of the change to their employment status and confirm to them that they are still employed by you and that they will continue to accrue things such as the length of service and annual leave. Now, it is worth being prepared because employees do not have to accept furlough if it is offered. But the alternative to this, given that there is not a role available for that employee, would potentially be then to be laid off or made redundant. Now, the HMRC has changed the eligibility criteria this week. And initially, it was employees who were on the payroll on or before the 28th of February could be furloughed. However, this has now been extended to the 19th of March. However, please be aware that this date means that employees had to be on the payroll and had to have been reported to the HMRC via your real-time information submissions on or before the 19th of March. So if you do have a new starter that joined the business before this date, however, you didn't submit them to the HMRC until after the 19th, they unfortunately can't be furloughed. The next question is, how do I tell the HMRC about furloughed employees? Now, the HMRC are currently setting up their online system for employers to submit information about furloughed workers and their earnings. We are still expecting this to be live on Monday, the 20th of April. As with any new release of a HMRC feature, I'm sure it would be safe to assume that there may be some teething issues. So just remain patient if things don't go that smoothly with the software or the service on Monday. Now, the HMRC have confirmed that those who are furloughing less than 100 employees will need to enter the individual employee details manually into the new online system. And those who are furloughing 100 or more employees will be able to upload the employee details in a CSV or XML type format. So how will furlough payments work? Most of you will know that the HMRC have committed to reimbursing 80% of the workers' gross wage costs, capped at £2,500. Now, for employees with fixed earnings, you will now need to take their gross salary in the pay period before the 19th of March. Again, this has changed slightly as it was previously gross salary as of the 28th of February. Now, for most monthly paid employees, this shouldn't really impact any calculations that have been done, but it's still worth checking. However, for those that run the likes of a fortnightly or weekly payroll, this may change the calculations slightly, and it also may increase the number of employees that can be furloughed. Now, there have been some clarification now on what counts as earnings. So base pay, we already knew, was the base amount that the employee would receive. However, this has now also been extended to include regular payments that you're obliged to pay your employees. And the examples that the HMRC give of this are things such as compulsory commission and overtime. Now, if you pay your employees bonuses at your own discretion, you don't need to include these in any amounts to pay to the employee. In addition to this, it is the employee's salary before any salary sacrifice deductions, as salary sacrifice will continue to be taken from employees' pay via the payroll. What you then must do is you must calculate this amount and then pay this to the employee through the payroll for each pay period they are furloughed. Now, at the moment, the HMRC have not issued any guidance on how to prorata furlough payments, for example, if the employee is furloughed mid-month, but ACAS have advised to follow the normal process that you would use for any proration to furlough payments, the same way you would for base pay. Now, once you've worked out how much the employee is receiving as their furlough payment, you apply to the HMRC to reclaim this amount plus the associated employer national insurance and pension costs. Remember, it is only employer national insurance on the furlough payment, and it is only pension at the minimum employer contribution between the lower earnings limit and the upper earnings limit. Now, again, the HMRC have not released guidance on how to do this yet, but they have committed to doing so before the online tool opens. The next question is, do I need to top up an employee's pay? So there's no requirement to top up to 100% unless you have contractual arrangements already in place to do so. So if your employee's employment contract already has provision for paying 100% of pay on this type of leave, then you must continue to do so. If the employee wants to take a period of annual leave whilst they are on furlough, they still must be paid for this, and they must receive the full pay that they would have ordinarily received, so there will be a requirement to top up in this instance. In addition to this, if an employee is required to complete any training, you as the employer will be responsible for ensuring that the employee is paid in full so that they receive the correct pay they would have received if they were not furloughed had they been doing some training. The next question is, what if we haven't received any money in time from the scheme? Am I going to have to reduce my employee's pay even further than 80%? So the HMRC haven't stipulated what would happen in the instance that an employer couldn't afford to make those payments before the claim money was received. I have read in unofficial sources, that's still to be confirmed by the HMRC, that you can claim up to 14 days ahead. Hopefully when the online system is up and running, there will be some clearer guidance in how far ahead you can claim. Now, if you are unable to make payments to the employees in the interim period between now and the money being received back from the HMRC, the HMRC do encourage that you look at their guidance on financial support for businesses during COVID-19, as they do offer various grants and loan schemes to support. Now, the HMRC haven't confirmed yet whether you can make a partial furlough payment to the employees and then pay an additional amount at a later date. But the current guidance does state that employees must receive no less than 80% of their salary. So I would encourage employers in this situation to look at other financial support being offered to businesses until the furlough claim is received. The next question is car allowance included in the furlough pay. So the HMRC have suggested that if it is a regular payment that you are obliged to pay your employee, then yes, this should be included. So, for example, if your car allowance forms part of the employee's kind of reward package and is in their contract of employment, then this should still be included in the furlough calculation and the payments made to the employee. Question 7. When claiming for furlough, do we just claim for 3 weeks and so on? I started on the 27th of March, so do I claim until the next pay reference week when the portal is released? So from the guidance that the HMRC have given us, one of the things that you need to confirm to the HMRC is the period for which you are claiming. So that suggests that the period you claim for will be up to the employer. We don't have any limitations on this yet. For example, we don't know if it's only limited to the next payday. Initially, there was some wording on the HMRC website that suggested that you make one claim every 3 weeks. However, I've noticed in the job retention scheme guidance, this has now been removed. So it could be that the HMRC are now looking at reviewing how often or how long an employer can claim for. And we'll keep you updated as soon as we get some further guidance on that. So the next question, question 8, do you think the government will extend the furlough period? Now, it is quite difficult to say at this stage whether or not they will extend the furlough period, but they have already made reference to the fact that it will be extended if necessary. Now, as the period of lockdown has been extended, it will be reasonable to think that the furlough scheme would be extended in line with this. But again, we would await HMRC guidance on that. And as it stands at the moment, the job retention scheme and furloughing employees is applicable up until and including the 31st of March 2020. So the next question we've had is, if an employee has gone back to New Zealand to be with family at this time, can they still be furloughed? So there is no specific guidance around employees that leave the country. But if the employee is still actively on your payroll as of the 19th of March, then the current guidance doesn't exclude them from being furloughed and leaving the country. But I think it will be a safe assumption that the furlough agreement should take place before the employee leaves. And again, the employee would only be furloughed if there was not a role for them to take within the business at the moment. One of the things you would need to consider is what would happen if the furlough scheme ends and your employee remains out of the country and unavailable for work. It would be up to the employer and any contractual processes that you have in place, whether this time away would then be paid or unpaid, but it would be at the cost of the employer in full after the furlough scheme has ended. Question 10. Can anyone self-isolating or high risk be furloughed? The government have, again, updated guidance, and yes, the employees who are classed as high risk or who have chosen to self-isolate, they can be furloughed. However, they can only be furloughed if the employee is not expected to return to their role and otherwise would have been laid off or made redundant. So if there would still be work for the employee at the end of their leave, then the self-isolating or high-risk employee would not be able to be furloughed, as you can't use the reason of sickness or self-isolation to furlough the employee. Question 11. Is an employee who joined the business on the 2nd of March 2020 and was also included on the payroll which ran on the 28th of March 2020 be eligible to be furloughed? So this entirely depends on if the employee was reported to the HMRC on an FPS on or before the 19th of March. So if an FPS was sent to the HMRC on or before the 19th of March for this employee, then yes, they could be included. However, if the FPS has been sent after this date, the HMRC guidance states that those employees will not be able to be furloughed. Question 12. We have students who work for us at weekends. I can't find anything to say if they are eligible to be furloughed. What would you suggest? So the HMRC guidance in regards to what types of employee can be furloughed is quite broad. They have said that it covers all types of employment contract, whether it's fixed hours, 0-hour contract or casual. So I believe that the furlough process would extend to students that you have working for you also, again, provided that they were on the payroll at the eligibility date and have been reported to the HMRC. What qualifies a business for the business grants? Now, this is quite a big question, and this depends on the type of financial support that you need. So I'm going to go through a couple of different options available to you. So the first one is regarding VAT registered businesses. If you have a payment of VAT due between the 20th of March and the 30th of June, the option is available to you to pay this at a later date in order just to give you some, additional financial resource to support during COVID-19. If you are looking for financial support for business rates and your business falls within retail or hospitality or leisure, then your local council will automatically be applying the discounts for you. So there's nothing you need to do in that instance. That will happen automatically. If you are a small business, you may be eligible for a small business grant, which is a payment of £10,000. Now, this is available to businesses who were already eligible for the small business rate relief scheme with a property on the 11th of March. Another financial means of support for smaller businesses is the business interruption loan scheme. And this is for small or medium businesses with an annual turnover of up to 45 million. Now, each of the different types of financial support has quite detailed guidance around the application and the eligibility and the repayment process. So if you do feel like you need some additional support in terms of business grants or business rates or interruption scheme loans, then the best thing that you could do is to visit the financial support for businesses during the coronavirus section on gov.uk for further details. But I'm sure we could circulate that link at the end of the webinar if that would be helpful. Question 14. How do you expect that the Corona Job Retention Scheme will work in terms of payment and format? Okay, so what we already know is that the HMRC will be paying the employer via BACS for the amount that they are due to give back to the employer, for the employee wages and the additional employer national insurance and employer pension costs. And the employer is then responsible for making sure that any grant received for the employee's earnings is paid in full. Now, the HMRC have confirmed that when the portal opens on the 20th of April, employers with fewer than 100 employees who are being furloughed will need to manually enter each employee's details. And this includes information such as their name, national insurance number, payroll number, the claim period and the claim amount. For employers with 100 or more furloughed employees, they will be asked to upload a file with this information. The format of the file has not been confirmed yet, and we do know that would be in the likes of a CSV format, but the information that this report should contain includes the employee's name, the employee's national insurance number, the claim period, the claim amount, and the employee's payroll or employee number if you use one. Now, the HMRC have committed to making all furlough payments to employers before the scheme ends. Initially, the HMRC did advise that one claim could be made every 3 weeks, but as I've mentioned, this has been removed from the HMRC guidance that was initially published for the job retention scheme. So this suggests that there may be more information to be released in relation to how often you can claim and what length of time that claim could be for. I would imagine that the most you'll be able to claim in one go would equate to a full pay period, but that, especially if it's for a monthly pay period, but we'll wait and see what the HMRC releases on that. Now, we do have plenty of time to answer questions that you've been submitting during the webinar. Just before I move over to that, I'm just going to spend 5 minutes to talk about how PayFit are currently supporting our customers with the furlough process. So firstly, we've now created a furlough simulator that anyone can access. You can do so by visiting the PayFit UK website. Now, even if you aren't a PayFit customer, you can still access this, and it's under the Resources tab. The sheet itself will make all the calculations for you based on some information that you input about your employees' earnings. Now, if you are currently using the PayFit app, then we've now released our furlough feature, which will automatically calculate your employee's furlough payment, and it will give you the information that you need to claim this via the online service. This also includes the cost of the employer national insurance and the employer pension. In addition to this, we have also released our COVID-19 related SSP feature, in which SSP is payable from day one for COVID-19 related absences. With this, we've also provided a report so that employers with fewer than 250 employees will know how much they can reclaim from the HMRC per employee for the statutory sick pay. Now, we aren't sure yet whether the SSP reclaim is going to form part of the online service that is being released on Monday, or if this will be separate. I imagine the priority has been given to making sure that the furlough system is up and running first, but it may be that this is released at the same time, but we await some further guidance on that. Okay, so I've taken you through the pre-submitted questions, so we'll just take a look now at some of the questions that you've sent in during the webinar. So the first question we have is from Siddharth, and it is just to understand, we pay employees in the regular fashion through the payroll, and then the HMRC reimburses us the required amount. Yes, so that is our understanding at the moment. We don't yet know whether or not you can claim in advance for payments that you are going to make for employees, or whether or not you claim for payments that you have made to employees. But once this is released from the HMRC, we'll keep you up to date with this. But yes, all payments will still continue to be made to employees through the payroll. The next question is from Emily. I've been paying my employee through the payroll and presumed I can claim this back. Was I meant to wait for the money and then back pay the employee? No, you are still to continue paying the employee as normal, and then when the new software opens on the HMRC gateway on Monday, what you can then do is you can put in a backdated claim from when the employee initially went onto furlough leave. Is the rebate for, this question is from Steve, is the rebate for employers' national insurance and minimum pension contributions based on the employee's reduced monthly salary, even if that is greater than £2,500, or is it capped as well as the base salary element? So the employer national insurance and minimum pension contributions will only be based on the true furlough payment. So if the employee normally receives more than this, the most that the employer national insurance and pension will be based on is the cap of £2,500. If you top up your employee so that they still receive 100% of pay, any additional national insurance that you pay for the top up will be at the cost to the employer and won't be able to be reclaimed. Okay, we have a question from Charlotte. We have an employee employed on the 9th of March 2020, redundant as of the 16th of March 2020 due to COVID-19. RTI submission for March payroll was on the 31st of March 2020. Can they be furloughed? I'm assuming since that the employee was made redundant on the 9th of March, they were actually already included on a previous FPS as well. I will get some further clarification around that for you, just to double check what the particulars are around employees who have been made redundant, and I will get back to you kind of after the webinar on whether or not the RTI submission for February or March is the one that would be taken into account for this one. The next question is from Jerry. Will PayFit have a feature to support the claim details or help with claiming from the HMRC? So because the claim will be done directly via the HMRC software, we won't be doing it on behalf of employers, but certainly things like making sure that you have the information that the HMRC requires, such as payroll number, claim amount, is something that we can certainly be able to support you with to make sure that you have everything you need when it comes to submitting through the HMRC online software next week. We do have one question in the chat section. How do we change the calendar on PayFit furlough section so it includes March? I'm not sure that I fully understand the question. Do we mean that so it includes March earnings, or so that the backdated payments are then made in March? Backdated payments, okay. Yes, so at the moment we are working on the backdated payments aspect of the furlough feature, so that anything that has previously been paid as base pay will be corrected, so it then becomes furlough. We have another question in the chat section from Kath, and it says, we've only just joined PayFit on the 1st of April. That's okay. So for employers that have joined us after March, that's absolutely fine. You can still use the furlough feature. Okay, so I see what you mean. So in response to Amanda's comment, you've only joined PayFit as of the 1st of April. So if you've joined as of the 1st of April and you have already made furlough payments in March, because it was done with the previous provider, we wouldn't be able to amend that for you. But I can certainly see how that would be done and find out a little bit more information for you so we can see how that would be corrected, given that you've had a change of software provider. What I will do is I'll drop a note to both yourself and Amanda after the webinar, just with how the backdate payments are going to look, whether you were using PayFit in March or whether you've joined us slightly later. Okay. Okay, we've just had one more from then. It's the same question from Viola. to say that they've just moved to PayFit from another provider, yes, we'll get in touch with you and just let you know what this means for you in regards to furlough payments that you are going to make or furlough payments that you have already made. We have a question that's just come in from Daniel. What about the director who does annual payroll and only submitted it on the 31st of March? It's a new company incorporated in July 2019, and he has a formal contract of employment with his company showing an annual salary of 12.5k annually pro rata. Okay, so this is an interesting one. So from what I'm understanding about this question is he only gets paid once per year, and that was submitted on the 31st of March. I would need to get some clarification, but again, I can certainly do that. I've not had a question about annual payroll before. But what I'll do is I will find out the details of that because that's quite a specific one, and I will contact you after the webinar with what I found. Now, we don't have any more questions, but I will just stay on in case we do have some additional questions. Okay, so we don't seem to have any more questions coming through. So I think what we'll do is we will bring the webinar to an end now. I know that I've still got some questions to follow up with, but if you do think of any questions after the webinar, please feel free to get in touch with us. And again, the guidance is still changing. So as soon as the guidance changes, we are doing our best to make sure the likes of our blog and our articles are updated on the PayFit website and on other social media such as Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram. So do keep checking back there as well for any updated information towards the job retention scheme guidance. So I hope today has been really, really helpful for you all. I really appreciate you coming along because I understand what a busy period this is. But if that is everything, I wish that you all stay safe and well, and thank you for taking the time to attend today.